What is up, y'all? We are here for episode 9 and eventually 10. I just finished rewatching episode 9. Janet and Jax are about to get every bit of this heat. I'm telling you, I can't stand either one of them. We're going to start with episode 9. Janet's going to get this work here. I already know what episode 10 was, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. I'm literally going to watch that after I finish recording this. And I'm going to drop this either late tonight, which is Saturday, or tomorrow, which will be Sunday. But if you're new here, please subscribe, please thumbs up the video, please drop a comment down below. I know it's been almost 2 weeks now since I've done it, but Love Island is in full season, so I'm going to be dropping these every single Saturday while Love Island is still on. But yeah, I'm not going to waste too much time. Let's go. And since this is going to be a double recap, it's going to be more so review style. It's not going to be as detailed besides the big points in the episode. But we'll get back to that once we get back to one of days. But we get Jasmine and Zach pretty much rollerblading through the city. Like the little filler scenes that they do at the beginning of each episode. You got Janet, Brittany, Michelle, and Sheena getting their hair done. Why is Sheena... I'm so sick of Sheena and Lala. Why are they now starting to get integrated in the show? That's starting to piss me off. But they're getting their hair done and they're talking about Jax. But Zach, we get a scene of him. He's pulling up to Kristen and Luke's house for their housewarming. Pretty much everybody starts arriving. Jasmine, Brittany, Jesse, Danny, Nia. They all start arriving. And Luke is pretty much asking about, like, what's new with Jesse when he's talking to Michelle. And he's like, I haven't even talked to her yet. Like, I haven't talked to her since we last were together. And some girl named Jenna, she's there. Who, do y'all know who Jenna is? Because I ain't never seen her before. She wasn't on last season. She wasn't on Vanderpump Rules. I don't know who she is. But we find out who she is. But she's here for mess. But she's Zach and Kristen's friend through Sheena. Jason and Janet, they end up arriving to Kristen. So I'm like, why are they there? But Danny ends up telling Nia and Kristen because Nia pretty much sees them. And Nia's like, I need to go get a bottle of wine because I know she's going to be in here starting shit. Which she always does. But Danny then says that he's had frustrations with Janet pretty much doing shit to attack his character because she likes the drama. And it's just malicious. And that's exactly what it is. Like, she's not a friend. Like, she does the shit that she does because she wants to embarrass people. And that's not a friend. But Jasmine and Luke, they are sitting there talking about Jason being angry at the beach and whatnot. And Jasmine was like, yeah, he was mad about the shit that I didn't even bring up. Like, I don't understand why he's really mad. And I felt like I was ganged up on. And she then says that she wants to get over it, though. So she ends up going to Janet and Jason and pretty much addresses them and is like, look, when Melissa gets back in town, I would like to have a conversation with y'all. And they pretty much agree to it. She walks away. Janet's talking about something, wow, that was a lot better now. Like, that was better. Please. You gaslit her the last time. Like, it could have went fine, but you gaslit her. And she was already hot anyway, sitting there waiting on y'all after y'all sat there and talked shit. And was doing little slick shit the entire time they were sitting there. What did you think was going to happen? But we get Jenna. She's talking to Zach. But they end up going to Jesse because they're talking about how she ended up dating Aaron, which we know Aaron is Michelle's boyfriend, her current boyfriend. So she asks Zach if she should go tell Jesse. And he's like, yeah, go tell him. So they go over there and they go tell him. And Jesse's like, about how long have y'all really been dating? And she says they dated twice. The first time was 5 years ago. The second time, the most recent time, was a year and a half ago. And Jesse starts to put two and two together and realizes a year and a half ago was when Aaron and Michelle started fucking around, essentially. And he's wondering if Jenna was the girl because apparently Michelle had caught him with the girl, talking about Aaron, caught him with a girl, and he's wondering if Jenna was that girl. And then he's putting two and two together, and it would make sense. But Jesse then says that he only found out because friends of Jax's actually ran into Aaron and Michelle at a bar, and they was in there making out and stuff. And apparently this was during the time that they were still together. So he's not putting the pieces together. But we get Luke, and he's talking to Danny essentially about setting up a trip, which we know we're going to see in the future. Setting up a trip to propose to Kristen. And he just doesn't want to fuck it up because he knows that Kristen typically can snip out a surprise. And he just wants it to go off without a hitch. But Brittany, we see Brittany in the kitchen, and she's talking to Janet and Jason about Jax when she was at home with her mom talking to his sister on FaceTime, and he's sitting there watching through the cameras. So she starts telling him about that. And then she then mentions this. This is crazy. Like, this proves that Jax is not all the way right. But she then talks about how his therapist that's always with him had told her that Jax basically threatened a worker to the point where she was crying and pretty much told her that if anybody calls, you need to act like I went to urgent care. And the therapist ended up telling him the truth and said that he never went to urgent care. He never went to the hospital. So he sat there and called his sister while she was on the phone with Brittany to tell His sister, which he knew she was going to end up telling Brittany that he was going to the hospital, basically trying to make Brittany feel bad for him. Something ain't right with him. He's been in that whole facility the whole time, wasting time. Wasting time, but we'll get to him later on. But Brittany, she then tells them about the email and stuff that he had sent her about the house being in foreclosure, fucking up her future. Potentially, she can't even get another house. Like, he's just trying to ruin her, essentially. And they're disappointed because they just talked to him a couple of days before, and he was giving them the act of his life, the acting performance for sure. But they're confused, they're shocked, they're disappointed. But Brittany then says, like, if he don't fix this shit, I'm ready to go fight in court. Janet pretty much tells her, you need to go get a divorce lawyer. Like, it's time. But we get a scene with Michelle at Lala's house. Again, why is she on the show? But we essentially find that this was sad, though. I did feel bad for Michelle. Y'all know I'm not a fan of her, but I did feel bad for her watching this scene. Lala pretty much asked her about her mom, and we find out that her mom is sick and was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And she had her first treatment of chemo, and that didn't work, so she's on her second treatment now. But it's at the point now where the cancer has pretty much spread all over and is now starting to eat her alive, essentially, and pretty much killing her off slowly. And Michelle, she's getting emotional because she's like, she don't know how much more time she has left with her mom. And her mom essentially is her best friend, and that's the person that always really supports her and is pretty much there for her the most. And she starts getting emotional, and of course I feel for her. Like, that was sad to watch. Even though I'm not a big fan of Michelle, that was sad to watch. Nobody wants to see that, especially when it comes to cancer. Like, anytime anybody has cancer in their life, it's never good. It's never fun. So I felt bad for her. But we get a scene of Jasmine and Michelle meeting with Janet and Jason to have lunch. Janet and Jason, they walk in talking about something, they nervous and whatever, and hoping that it's going to be peaceful. Yeah, it would only be not peaceful on your end, Janet. And Jason, you starting to act a fool too here recently. But Jason ends up stating that he and Janet were confused about everything that had happened. And Kristen essentially had told them that she had heard from Jasmine about this whole taking the ring off shit at the bars and whatever. And he ends up stating that he never has done that. And he's confused as to why Jasmine would even say it to Kristen, especially when her and Janet weren't in a good place at that time. So he didn't ask if anything that he said so far was inaccurate. And Jasmine says some of it. She says that she never told Kristen and never repeated it. So he then says that Kristen pretty much said that you did it. They show a flashback. Luke was the one telling them. And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think he even mentioned Janet or Jasmine's name in it. But we see the clip of Jasmine pretty much admitting that she did say it to Kristen. So she's lying here, at least from what I can see. But Janet then says Kristen pretty much blamed Jasmine. This is Janet trying to manipulate and trying to pollute Jasmine against Kristen. Like, the way she was doing that, you can tell she's trying to start an angle to get everybody to hate Kristen again. Like, that's what that was. That's what that was. And it's just funny considering how she's so mad about what Kristen's saying about Jason, rumors. But then she does what she does later. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. But Melissa then says the rumors essentially did not originate from us. Janet says that she believes them. Jason then starts talking about the part that is bugging him is that at the beach, it looked like Jasmine had so much resentment towards Janet. And it's just like, do you not know the wife that you have? Do you not know the woman that you married? Like, she's not innocent. And if somebody does have resentment towards her, I mean, it's pretty much warranted considering the way she acts. But Jasmine says at the time, that's how I felt. But I don't think that you're a Karen. She is. She is. You don't have to think it, but I do. But Jasmine then apologizes. Janet apologizes, and they all squash it. Next. We don't care. We then get this stupid scene, this camera video that Jax had pretty much recorded 2 days before he's leaving the facility, beating a bunch of bullshit, trying to act like he's so changed. We already know he isn't, but we'll get to it. But Brittany, she's at their house, and she ordered a bunch of nasty ass food that you shouldn't be eating. Pizzas, Taco Bell, freaking Domino's, McDonald's, all types of crap. Because everybody essentially, except for the boys, essentially, well, Zach is there, but the rest of the boys are not there. But all of the girls are there to help her pack up Jax's shit. So Zach pretty much lets them know that he's planning a night, like a last night out without Jax for Brittany. And they're going to turn Jax's into Brittany's for the night. So Brittany ends up talking about how she's been so strong and she's just not going to allow Jax to suck her back in, which we know she typically has a pattern of doing that. But Michelle is in her confessionals and she's upset because everybody essentially is giving Brittany all this support. All of this support. And she's starting to feel like, wow, y'all giving her all this support. I should be getting some of this as well because I'm going through a rough time as well. When she says that, it's like, I feel for you halfway. The mom part, I absolutely feel for you. But the divorce part, that's what you wanted. You wanted the divorce. Not only that, you allegedly was cheating on him first. So there's only so much support I can give to a cheater, even if you are my friend. Like, you could have gotten out of that. You could have. But the mom part, I absolutely understand. But they start packing up all his shit and whatever. But Brittany ends up getting emotional while doing it because she still loves Jax. I don't know how. Everything about what he's done to you shows that he hates you. It's time to let him go. But we get a scene of Brittany meeting with the divorce lawyer. So she pretty much runs her through on everything that's happened so far, the timeline. And she starts talking about how she had moved into an Airbnb whenever they were separated. And they continue to fight and everything. And now she's wondering what she can do to protect herself. So the lawyer pretty much asks her, like, what led you here today? And she talks about all the blow-ups that has happened with Jax, his erratic behavior. So she then tells her that he is in rehab and he gets out tomorrow. So she's in here today, the day before. That was funny to me. But she lets him know that she lets her know that he gets out tomorrow. But he's been sitting there rage texting her and everything. So that's also the reason why she's there. But the lawyer then asks, like, is he stalking you? Like, what is he doing? So she then tells her about him looking at the cameras while she's in there and pretty much telling her what she's wearing and just being fucking weird. And the lawyer's like, yeah, he's obsessed. It's not healthy. And it's not healthy. Brittany then mentions Cruz and them owning the home together. This is very important. You need to talk about this. So she tells her about them owning the home together, Jax stopping paying the mortgage. And then she then talks about how, like, he's always paid the mortgage because she has the bills and everything else, essentially. So basically, you pay the mortgage, I'll pay for everything else that we got going on. I'll pay for the bills, and I'll pay for everything we need for Cruz. That's essentially the agreement that they had. So she then tells her that he was behind on his taxes, too. She said he essentially owes the IRS $1.2 million. $1.2 million. And was about to go to jail. He ended up putting it on their house. Their mortgage went from $8,000 to $17,000 because of all of that shit that he had going on. Brittany, I don't know how you stayed in that relationship with him. I don't. That's crazy. But she then says that they even took $1,000 out of her own personal account because she's married. And I can believe that because I work for a bank and I know how certain shit like that ends up happening. So I can believe it, which is crazy. But she then tells the lawyer about how he's wanting her to take over the mortgage now because he had moved out and pretty much told her, you got it all. Like, you're going to have to do all of that in addition to all the expenses. So the lawyer's like, so what is his contribution? Like, what is he doing to help you out? And she's like, that's why I'm here, because, like, I pay for everything. I pay for everything for Cruz. I never asked him for shit because he essentially, in my mind, was paying the mortgage. So I'm like, so he's paying the mortgage. I'm not going to ask him for shit. So then again, that's slightly your fault too, though, Brittany. But, I mean, I get it. But the lawyer then tells her, essentially, you need to file sooner than later, which is true. Because essentially, he'll know that marriage is over. And then at that point, you can get on with your life. But Brittany then says, like, she didn't think that she would come into this meeting today and actually be ready to file. But the lawyer made it crystal clear to her, like, you need to do something right now. You need to get up out of that marriage right now. So she asks if she can start filing today. And the lawyer says, yeah, we can prepare the petition. You can start the filing today or tomorrow. Regardless, she's pretty much letting her know we can get that ball rolling. And Brittany gets there and she goes ahead and signs. And she says, I'm going to do it now because I don't want to allow him to weasel his way back into my life. So we get to this scene where Zach and Nia, they are pretty much at Jax's, pretty much decorating it and turning it into Britt's. So everybody starts arriving and whatnot. Everybody's loving the fact that it now says Britt's up there instead of Jax's. And Jason is pretty much talking about how Jax is going to be pissed off when he finds out about it and doesn't think it's going to be funny. Obviously, we know that. But Kristen and Brittany, they're riding to the bar together. And Kristen tells her how proud of her she is for going to seeing the divorce lawyer. And Brittany drops it on her. I filed today. Kristen was like, yes, finally. Gives her a hug. She tells her how proud of her she is. And Brittany starts telling her that she felt guilty. Just started feeling a little bit guilty because she had filed the day before that he comes out of rehab. And I'm like, I don't know how you would feel guilty. Considering everything that you have received from him while he was in there recently, as of a day or two before, how you feeling bad? I wouldn't feel bad at all. I would not. But Kristen pretty much tells her, like, that's on him. Like, he had many of years to go get some help, and he hadn't done it. So at that point, you finally made the decision that you needed to make that was healthy for you and him, essentially. But Zach, he's starting to get everybody ready and organized because Kristen has texted him and pretty much told him that they're getting close. So Kristen ends up having Brittany walking in, and she sees the bar. She's loving it. She's laughing. But they get on in, and everybody's there. They surprise her. So Zach is now saying a speech about how they just wanted her to have one good last night without Jax. And again, Michelle is sitting there, and she's clearly bothered. Clearly bothered. So she then starts telling Janet how she feels weird because she's going through the same shit, a.k.a. the divorce, and nobody seems to care. Janet said she was sitting there thinking about it too, like, damn, like, you going through it too. But it's really not for you. But Michelle then says in her confessionals that it just hurts her feelings that she has to go through a divorce and a sick mother at the same time, and it's the time where she really needs her girls. Well, we get Jason, Jesse, Luke, and Danny. They're sitting together, and the girls are sitting together. So the boys are taking shots, and you see Jason looking at Danny. My whole thing is with them, if y'all have such an issue with him drinking and whatnot, why do y'all sit here and continue to allow him to do it in y'all presence? And then not only that, the way they go about it, we're going to get to it. So we get Jesse, and he's in his confessional talking about it's a 99% success rate that Darkside Danny will show up tonight. I'm like, here y'all go being weird. But the group, they ends up getting together. Like, the girls start to join the guys at this point, and Luke is pretty much telling Jason to fill Kristen in on what pretty much has happened so far. So Kristen is sitting there, and she's like, I just wanted to make sure that we're good, like, essentially. Kristen then lets us know that she met with Janet a week or two before, if I'm remembering correctly, to squash everything after the rumor shit came out. And she thought they were good, but she heard from Sheena that Janet was still talking shit. And she was. They showed that flashback on when she was at the house talking about something, if you coming for my husband, bitch, I'm coming for you. Exactly. So Kristen light it back up. So Kristen then addresses it with Janet, and Janet's sitting there trying to act like she ain't really do nothing. She's trying to like act like she ain't really do nothing. And they showed a flashback of her running that mouth. But she's trying to downplay it. Danny is sitting over there making comments too, like interjecting and saying certain things. And I'm not mad at him, even though clearly he's tipsy. But I ain't mad at him because this is some shit that Janet does. And it's like, you do that shit to other people. So when it's done to you, you have to take it. So he's doing that. And Kristen's like, she would rather Janet not talk about other people. Which, I mean, if you don't want people talking about your husband, then you need to stop talking about other people, which is true. But Janet then says, I'm not the only one that be talking about other things. And I'm like, you're not, but you're the one that acts like you can't be talked about. But you want to talk about any and everybody else. Like, you act like nothing that you got going on in your life can be talked about. But you have no problem spreading rumors and saying damaging things about people that you claim are your friends. Weird. But Danny, he's continuing to butt in. And Nia, at this point, is trying to get him to stop. And it's just not working. He then mentions Janet, Jasmine, and Jason's situation. And Danny, like I say, he's seemingly tipsy at this point. But Nia's telling him to stop speaking for other people, but he keeps on going. And Kristen and Nia, they get up to go to the bar. So Janet's in her confessional talking about Nia can't even get Danny to stop. Like, she can't even do it. And here comes Darkside Danny at his finest. I'm like, here we go. But Jason then is telling Danny that he don't know what's going on with him right now. Janet then says, Danny Darko's back. And Danny's like, what did you just say? And then Jason repeats it. And I'm like, you supposed to be his friend, but you sitting here gaslighting him. Like, you sitting here gaslighting him. And you know he's going to get upset. You know he's tipsy. So at this point, why are you sitting here trying to egg him on? Y'all want him to not act the fool, but y'all sitting here trying to egg him on. Weirdos. Like, y'all supposed to be friends. But Jason then tells Jesse to take Danny out of here. And Danny says, wow. Jason says, yeah, you're the wow guy. I'm like, you are fake as fuck. Like, you are not a real friend. Like, he's sitting here like antagonizing him. You know that he is tipsy, and you essentially are trying to act like he's going to act a fool. But at this point, you're trying to get him to act a fool, and that's not a good friend. That's not a good friend. I don't like the way they're handling it. But Janet is sitting there talking about how they have nothing to hide. Danny gets up and starts laughing and says, that's funny. It is funny because I feel like they do have something to hide. But Janet's weak ass starts talking shit while Danny is walking away at this point, talking about, I'm not the one who's out here, my husband's not the one who's out here grabbing asses. I said, but your husband is apparently the one out here walking around without his ring on. Allegedly. But I mean, shit, you want to start saying rumors, let's talk about those rumors too. Luke then says in his confessionals, classic Janet, she's sitting here pointing fingers at everybody else, and she just don't know how to stop talking about other people, which is true. But Danny goes over to Nia and pretty much tells her about what just happened. And Nia's like, I think we just need to leave at this point. So she then says in her confessionals that she was frustrated with Danny continuing to essentially poke at Janet. But at the same time, who the fuck do you think you are to be talking about her husband? And you're supposed to be her friend, but you're sitting here going out of your way to essentially trying to make a fool out of them. And I'm like, exactly, Nia. But they start leaving, and Brittany and Michelle are over there, and they're asking them what happened. They fill them in on it. And Danny pretty much tells them that Janet is a snake, and she is one. She is one. But of course, Michelle goes back and tells Janet, and then Janet then says that I'm not the ass grabber. He's mad at himself because he's misplacing the anger. Same thing could be said about you. Like you're mad at what you got going on internally, which is why you're so hell bent on being messy within your own friend group. Let's talk about that. Let's address that. But she then says that he comes into bars and does things that he's embarrassed about. But he then gets mad at me because I'm pretty much putting a mirror in his face and showing him the shit that he does. I'm like, you are insane. But Jessie, and that's the crazy thing too with her. You could tell she doesn't do things from a good place. It'd be one thing if she was doing it from a good place. The way she acts, she wants to embarrass her own friends, which is beyond weird. It's beyond weird. Even if he does have a problem, which I don't want to say is far-fetched, because I mean, but the way they go about it, it's just not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay at all. So we get Jesse pretty much talking about how he's going to be picking Jax up tomorrow from rehab, and he's knowing that he's essentially going to have to tell him, or at least he's going to know about them doing what they're doing right now, turning Jax's into Brittany's. And he starts talking about how Jax had made it a point whenever he was starting a business to always include Brittany in it, and they start showing all these flashbacks to try and make it seem like everybody was out here trying to do something dirty to Jax to kind of rile him back up when we're trying to help him instead of having him going back and regressing. It's like, can he really regress when he's never made progress? Like, yeah, he's been in there, and yes, he put on a show for y'all whenever he called y'all, but it's clear he has not changed at all. There's nothing that has changed. He sat in there for 30 days and is still the same person. But he then says that it's a clear divide, and pretty much what I just said. But we're about to get into episode 10. If y'all got this far and haven't already, thumbs up the video real quick, drop a comment, let me know what y'all thinking so far. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see y'all in a minute. Alright, so let's get back into this. So we get back to where Brittany is nervous about Jax coming out. It's the day where Jax is coming out of rehab, and we got Jesse going to pick him up from rehab. So they're in the car driving from rehab, and Jax is talking about how he has a lot of feelings knowing that he's walking to a shitstorm. And he's talking about now he's got to face everybody, and he's got to face it all at once, and he doesn't want to go back to his old ways, yada, yada, yada. Just trying to victimize himself and trying to make himself seem like he learned something when we know he didn't. But he then says that he's unpacked a lot of serious shit the whole time that he's been there, and he's unpacked stuff that he thought he would take to the grave. But he says that he was in there crying nonstop, and this was up there with his father's death. So he then says that he never was held accountable for his actions, which he wasn't. That is true. But Jesse then says that nobody's going to essentially give you a break at this point. Like, you got to be ready for it because everybody's hurt. Jax then reverts back into being his aggressive self. Says nobody's hurt. They're all partying. Not one person came to visit me. Not even my own wife of 10 years. Why would she? Why would she? Because if I remember correctly, day 1 or 2, you was already in there harassing her. So, like, why? No. Because it's like, first of all, you're harassing me through a phone. What do you think is going to happen in real time? Like, what? Are you okay? But he then starts talking about the party. How he found out about the party, the Britt's party, and how it happened the night before he got out for rehab or whatever. Trying to victimize himself still. But Jesse then says, like, everybody took it as a joke, and Jax essentially needs to go on an apology tour because everybody knows how you've been acting. But they get back to his and Brittany's house, and he's asking, like, where's his shit at? And he goes in the garage and sees all of it in trash bags and not in boxes. So he's pissed off about that. But he then gets in there and is talking about how this right here tripped me out. I'm like, do you understand how you sound right now? He sat there and said that he needs Brittany to put the house on the market immediately. And he says no woman needs a 5-bedroom house and a 7-bath because she's a woman with a child and she needs to get a 3-bedroom house that is manageable as a woman. I said, do you hear her? Do you hear yourself? You acting like he sounded very misogynistic. And it's just like, as a woman, you can't have this, or as a woman, you can't have that. Nigga, you are a grown ass man that you probably shouldn't need to be in a house. You need to be in a room with padded walls. That's what you need to be in. You don't even need to be in a house. You need to be in a straitjacket. Something is wrong with him. And then for him to have the audacity to say some shit like that, like, I'm like, how do you sound? But Jesse then mentions the mortgage, and Jax ends up talking about how he had stopped paying it and hoped that it went into foreclosure. Like, your name isn't on that as well. That shows you how slow and how mentally delayed he is. Like, I'm like, you sitting here trying to ruin her life, but you're attached to it as well. So do you think you're exempt from that? Like, what? What? But he says that Jesse then mentions the party that he's having for Zach and Benji, because Benji's coming home, well, coming to LA. And Jax pretty much invites himself into it, because the party's going to be at Jesse's house. And Jesse's pretty much beating around the bush about the fact that Jax is not invited. But Jax literally bitches Jesse into inviting himself to his own house. Talking about something, it's my friend's house, it's Jesse's house, so if I want to go, I'm going to go. If that's my home and I didn't invite you, you're not coming in. But of course, Jesse, he got all this energy for everybody but Jax. Like, it's crazy. But Jax pretty much tells him, I'm coming to your house, and he ain't do nothing about it. But Zach goes to pick up Benji. He's on the phone talking to Jasmine about Jax pretty much trying to come to the party. And Jasmine ends up stating, essentially, we got to give him grace and space to show us that he's changed. He's not changed, and he's going to show you that. But Michelle and Aaron, quick little scene, they're talking about him moving in, essentially, because him and Isabella are getting a lot closer. And of course, Michelle wants that to be something that blossoms into a future marriage, as well, him possibly being her stepdad. And she ends up updating him on her mom, and it's being said that her body is continuing to deteriorate, that's sad. That's really, really sad. But what is so fucked up, and it's crazy, because, like, when it comes to Jesse and Michelle, I equally don't like both of them, honestly. But I felt bad for him last year because she cheated on him. But you're now making me feel even more bad for her, because the way you're going about shit in her situation is weird. It's beyond, it's hard. This right here is heartless. Yes, her cheating on him is heartless. But for you, she tells Aaron that she sent Jesse an email to pretty much get him to allow Isabella to come spend time with her grandmother, because who knows when her time is coming, because it seems like it's possibly going to get here quicker, because she's deteriorating. Her body is starting to break down and shut down, which means the end is likely near, and you don't know how much more time you have left with her. Why did this man tell her no? You fucking asshole. Like, that is next level evil. Like, that's evil. And she says, like, that's the lowest thing he's ever done to me. And it's crazy. That's the lowest of lows. Yeah, like I said, you cheat on me, I'm gonna make your life hell. But some shit like that, absolutely not. You got to be a human at some point. And not only that, you're doing Michelle a disservice, but you're really doing your daughter a disservice too, because trying to shield her from being able to go spend time with her grandmother, going to spend time with your grandmother, period. That's a luxury in itself. But whenever he knows that we're gonna get into it. But Jake, again, another scene that pissed me off. When I tell you I can't stand Jason, Jason has joined Janet and Jax for me. Like, I can't stand that man. I can't stand him anymore. The last couple episodes have literally stamped it in. He spent all last season just being background, and now that he's in the forefront, you see his true colors. But him and Jason and Danny get to the restaurant first, because they're there to welcome Jax back home. So they get to the restaurant first, and Danny's coming up there trying to be cordial and whatever, and Jason is being slick shady, talking about some, I got your text, but we're not cool right now, but tonight it's all about Jax. And Danny's like, okay. But he then says that Danny has sent him an apology that was just random and generic. Danny, I wouldn't apologize to him for shit, because you ain't do nothing wrong. They sat there and gaslit you, and then they want to get mad because you low-key was about to turn up on him. Like, get the fuck out of here, Jason. But he ends up saying that he doesn't have time in his life for Danny at this point. Shut up. Shut up. But Jax arrives after them, and they go sit down. So they end up telling Jax that he looks 10 years younger than he ever has. Please. He then says that he's feeling the best that he ever has in his life. Bullshit. You know, he's just lying. But he then says that he's learned drinking and drugs aren't the problem with anybody. It's deep-rooted issues that cause you to go to drinking and drugs. Duh, dipshit. Like, hello? He then tells them that he wants them to hold him accountable going forward. So Jason then asks him if he's going to drink casually. And Jack says, I'm not going to stop, but, I mean, I won't get shit-faced. But Jack's, his business partner is sitting there. He then brings up them hijacking his bar. And Danny says, like, we didn't do it. Like, I didn't do it. Jax then addresses Danny and Danny only. Talking about something you didn't do it, but you partaked. First of all, dumbass, it's partook. You fool. Go back to school. I can't stand improper grammar like that. That's crazy to me. But he then starts aggressively talking to Danny like Danny was the only one that was at the party when you got Jesse and you got Jason, who were both there as well. But he sits there talking to him, talking about, why would you do that the day before I got out? Why don't you address that to them too then? Like, if you're going to have that energy for Danny, have it for them too, because they were there as well. But he then says, like, it essentially was a slap in the face. And Danny's in his confessionals talking about, like, why are you so angry when you were supposedly in that facility for 30 days getting help on your anger, which clearly it hasn't worked. I'm like, exactly. But Jax then brings up Santa Barbara. And they ends up talking about, like, it was a good time. We had a great time. They then start gaslighting. They started gaslighting Danny. And this just gradually pissed me all the way off. It just pissed me off the more and more I watched it. Jesse says you were so blacked out. And then Jack starts condescendingly turning and taunting Danny. Like, your ass didn't just get out of the rehab like you just came back. You just got out of rehab and you are literally acting the same way you were before you even walked in there. So you're the last person to be talking about somebody. So Jax then says to Danny condescendingly, oh, there were no hidden bottles in the pantry. And of course, Danny clocks the fact that Janet and probably Jason tipped him off about it because he wasn't even there. So how the fuck would you know? So Jesse then says that we don't call him Darkside Danny anymore. And then Jason ends up saying, yeah, I still do. I would have leapt across that table and I probably would have choked him. I'm not going to lie to you. I would have probably beat the shit out of Jason. I'm not going to lie to you. Because the way he sat there and kept trying to gaslight Danny really was pissing me off. Like, it was literally burning me up. And you could tell they was sitting there trying to literally target him and just like gang up on him. And that shit pissed me all the way off. I can't stand that shit. And it just comes from a level of just disgust. They sitting there trying to act like they're so positive when it comes to Jax. And they want people to give Jax grace about all of his mental issues, but then want to sit here and label Danny as an alcoholic. And then not only that, they don't come at it from a level as friends, from a level of trying to help him. They're doing it, throwing it in his face, trying to make him see. They're like basically making fun of him. And that shit is not cool. Like, it's not cool at all. That's why I said I would have leapt across that table and I probably would have beat the fuck out of him. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you. Violence is not the answer, but sometimes it is. Honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. Because I probably would have beat the shit out of him. I'm not going to lie to you. Jax then asks, like, so what's going on between y'all? And Jason's like, we'll talk about it. Jax says, I mean, y'all might as well get it out the way right now. And Danny says, yeah, like, I mean, I apologized to him. And Jason was like, you don't even know what you're apologizing for because you was blacked out. He was not blacked out. Was he tipsy? Yeah. Was he blacked out? No. Like, you sitting here over exaggerating and trying to make him out to be something that he's not. And that's what pisses me off. Yes, Danny likes to drink. Yes, Danny likes to get tipsy. Yes, it seems like he might like to get drunk sometimes. But all of y'all on the show do the same thing. All of y'all do the same thing. Yes, as we've heard about what happened with Jasmine and her girlfriend. But that was addressed. It never happened. At least from what we know, it hasn't happened again. So they sitting here trying to... I can't stand how they're trying to paint him in a way that does not seem to be actual and factual. And that shit is damaging to do that shit on TV. And that proves that they are not his friends. They're not Nia's friends either. Like, I just don't like that. I don't like the way they're going about this. Jason then gets in his confessionals and says that Danny is a dangerous person to be around. And he thinks that he's better than Jax when Jason said, I should have been the one driving you to a mental facility. Like, you're a fucking weirdo. You're a weirdo. You're a weirdo. Like, I do not like him at all. It's so crazy how he's doing all of this, but was tripping out whenever they was talking about him going to bars without his ring on. And I believe it. Honestly, I do. The way he acts, it's just funny how you trying to act a fool now. Like, you really showing your ass. But Jax then has the audacity to sit there and tell Danny that you have an issue. And that's the thing with certain people that go into rehab facilities, come out and don't really change. They think because they've been in there, they can now start trying to tell you about yourself. Like, be for real. But he says, and Jackson ends up saying too, like, I'm the last person to be telling you about it. And Danny's like, yeah, no kidding. Like, please shut up. But Jackson then says that Danny was kicked out of his bar for his drinking or whatever. And Danny was like, I don't have an issue. And Danny then says, like, my issue is and he says in his confessionals, my issues is my friends sitting here attacking me for things that didn't even happen. And I'm starting to see that Jason, because, you know, Jackson's real name is Jason, they're not his real friends. He's starting to see that Jesse ain't your real friend either, because he was adding into it. Not only that, he did not sit here and defend you. He didn't stop them. That's not your real friend either. But they continue to gaslight him. It was just pissing me off. But Jackson ends up stating in his confessionals that he's happy that everybody else has issues too. That shows you the type of person that he is. That shows you the type of person that he is. Everybody, anytime he has something going on, everybody else has to have something going on. He's that type of person that cannot go through shit without trying to drag somebody else through it. Like, disgusting. But we get to Benji's welcome home party. Everybody's arriving to Jesse's house. Brittany then mentions how she's not seen Jax. She hasn't seen him since he's been out, and has made it a point to not have contact with him. Like, she blocked him on everything, essentially. And she's not having contact with him because she knows she's about to serve him papers in a couple days. Says he hasn't reached out to her once to even see Cruz. Even though he sat there and tried to claim that that's what he was wanting to do, yet he's sitting there getting 5 to 6 shots of Botox in his face. But Zach and Benji, they end up arriving. Everybody's surprising them. And then Nia ends up pulling Janet to talk. Nia made me so proud in this. And she's addressing the rumors about what Janet's been saying. So Janet is talking about something. I'm going to be real with you. I spoke negatively about your husband behind his back because I thought that his actions were horrible. Nia says, horrible? Horrible? Janet says, I mean, I'm sorry it happened, but if your husband's going to go out to public bars getting blacked out, making women uncomfortable, it's going to get talked about. She then says that your husband was blacked out a couple days ago, yelling at me in the middle of the bar. He was not blacked out and he was not yelling at you. Shut up. Like, that's one thing about them. I can't stand how they try to blow shit up. That did not happen. But Nia then says, like, he had 2 seltzers. He was not blacked out. He wasn't. But Janet then says if he's going to have that type of behavior off of 2 seltzers, that is concerning. Nia says, what behavior? Like, him being mad at you? Like, be for real. But Janet then says that he called me a snake, because you are. You are. And she then says maybe he's not a drunk asshole. Maybe he's a sober asshole. Then what the fuck are you? What are you? A bitch? Like, that's what you are. But Nia then says that you're intentionally trying to make him out to be some bad person and put him in a bad light. Janet then cuts her off and says, I'm bringing the truth. If you're going to sweep it under the rug, Nia cuts her off and says, I'm not sweeping it under the rug. I'm literally addressing it directly to you right now, like I address issues in my marriage directly. And she then tells her, you watch what you say when it comes to my business. And I said, exactly, Nia. You better get her ass. And of course, Janet's punk ass gets up and walks away like she always does when the heat gets hot. She gets up and starts running. Yeah, she wants to act like she's some tough ass. Like, please. But Nia then goes inside and Danny's checking up on her. And she pretty much talks about in her confessionals how Janet never apologizes for anything and she only doubles down. And they're pretty much lies that she's doubling down on. And if they're not lies, she's shifting narratives to fit a certain mold that she wants to, which is true. Like, that's how Janet operates. But Danny's checking up on her. Like I said, Janet is outside telling Jason that Nia's husband is out here essaying women at bars. Dangerous ass allegations. If that is not true, I hope Danny sues the fuck out of her. I hope he does, because that's defamation if it's not true. But Janet then says in her confessionals that Nia is very aware of how he gets, which is why she pulls him away. And she thinks that Nia is either in denial or hiding the truth. You think. That's the point. You don't know. You think you know, but you think. You think. But Danny is telling Nia that he knows who he is and he owned up to his mistakes, which he has. And he's getting tired of it. Essentially, it's like they're bullying him, like, to be completely real. But Nia then says, like, I just don't have the energy for it. And I feel you. But Jax, he ends up arriving and the energy is already shifting Kristen is standing there talking to him, and she's like, this is standard Jax. He always shows up to a party basically uninvited, and he always has to find a way to get somewhere. But he then goes up to her. Brittany sees him sitting there. Jesse's over there talking to her, and she's talking about how she got this rush of nerves all of a sudden. But Jax is sitting there telling Kristen that he'd like to see his son at some point, but he has to get to the moving stuff. And Kristen then addresses how he's not making eye contact with her. Like, he's literally looking at the ground, looking in front of her. She's right here. She's not making eye contact with her. So he sits there and tries to act like he is making eye contact, but he isn't. But Brittany and Jasmine, they end up going in the kitchen. And Jax then brings up Brittany's party to Kristen. And Kristen was like, let her have her moment for one night. Like, chill out. It's not that deep. So he then says, I hope that she's spending a lot of time with Cruz. Basically trying to shade her, stating like she ain't really spending time with her son. The audacity of you. But Kristen, that gets in her confessionals, and pretty much echoes that same sentiment. Pretty much stating like, don't even question her as a mother. You better be lucky that she is the mother of your child, because the position that you're in, be so for real. And she said essentially like, you need to get on your hands and knees and pray to God that you got that woman as the mother of your child. But Jax, he then talks about how jealous he is that everybody is drinking. I said, you ain't learned shit, clearly. But Jesse is inside with Danny and Nia talking about him and Michelle. Because Nia's pretty much telling him like, yeah, I talked to Michelle, and she's sad about Jesse not allowing Isabella to go spend the week with her mom, who is sick. And Nia gets emotional, obviously, because it's like, you're being evil at this point. Like, allow her to at least spend time with her grandmother, who you don't know how much longer she's going to be here. This man gets here, and I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. But he then says he had no idea how sick her mom was. So she got to be basically dead for you to go let her go see her grandmother. It doesn't matter how sick she is. Go let her go see her grandmother. But he then says that if he knew that, he would have allowed her to spend time. Like, shut up, Jesse. You're a weirdo. But he then says that him and Michelle need to have a conversation about death with Isabella. She can't see it and not know what's going on. So I'm like, why would you? It's at the point now where it sounds like he wants her to basically be dead before he allows her to. And that it's like, what's the point? What is the point? Like, he gets on my nerves. But Jax is in the kitchen talking to Jesse's life coach, feeding him bullshit about how he's changed and yada, yada, yada. But Jasmine and Brittany, they end up walking in awkward, and they avoid speaking to him. They walk out, and Brittany's like, yikes. But they head back outside with the rest of them, and Brittany's sitting there telling Janet that she's not ready to face Jax at this point because she might get sucked back in. So it's Zach on this episode. This was beautiful. This was beautiful. I would have done the same thing as Zach, honestly, like, because I know you haven't changed, and I'm gonna have you prove that to me. So he's in the kitchen with him. Jax is trying to break the ice, and Zach is like, if we're being honest, I'm proud of you for doing what you did. Basically, that's what he's saying. But Jax ends up stating that he feels pretty good about therapy and going to rehab, and says that he was in therapy for 7 hours a day for 30 days straight. Kind of like trying to flex, like, I was in there doing my business. Zach said, so what was you doing outside of that, between those hours? Did you listen to the doctors? I said, exactly. Jack says that he was journaling and writing. And Zach said, did that include the messages to Brittany? I said, exactly. Clock him. So Jax then says that she took my son away from me. She said that she was going to bring him, but she reneged on it. Zach then says, because you uncovered them cameras, like on your break at some random rehab facility that allows you to just get out and go do some shit like that. I was on Zach's wavelength, like, what kind of rehab facility is this to where you get that much access to being able to go do what you want to do? Like, that's weird to me, which makes you question if it was really a rehab facility. But Jack says it's not random, it's beautiful. Zach says, I bet it is. I'm pretty sure it was a resort. I was like, get him. But Brittany can hear them now because it's starting to get escalated. But Jax is now sitting in there saying that we're not talking about a text. We're not talking about anything that I did 5 years ago. And Zach was like, yeah, I'm talking about what you did 5 days ago. When you uncovered them cameras that you covered that she didn't even notice. And that's kind of shady, isn't it? But Jackson says that he took him down because he wanted to see who was coming in and out of his house while he was away and doesn't want other men in the house. I said, but you had no problem with bringing them hoes in that house. So what's the difference? What's the difference? But Jackson says that he's not going to do this with Zach because everybody in this place needs to be in rehab. I said, so much for that progress that you claim that you made. But he then says that he's seen Zach screaming and banging shit, basically trying to say, like, you're no better than me. And Zach was like, yeah, and I went to therapy for it. And what? Like, what else about it? Like, I don't have that much of an issue that you do. I can control it. So Zach then tells Jax that you need to admit that your behavior is why you were where you were. And Jackson says, like, this is not a bash Jax party, and if it is, I'm just going to walk. Zach says, okay, well, then go walk to that front door. I was like, get him. But Jackson says that he's going to go talk to Brittany, and then he's going to go. And Zach says, no, she don't want to talk to you. Jackson says, it's not your business, it's mine. I don't want you coming to my bar. Zach said, well, you need to talk to your business partners then because they allowed me to come in there. Zach was trying to get him riled up, and I was enjoying every bit of it, honestly. And the reason why I was enjoying it was because of the way he was sitting there trying to antagonize Danny earlier in the episode. But Zach then says, you act like it's your money in that bar. It's Brittany's money. And Jackson's like, it is mine. Zach was like, is it? Jack says, this is my show. This is my show. I'm like, nobody is watching this show for you, Jax. Not a soul. You probably the last cast member on this show that people care to tune in to see. But Zach ends up sliding his ass, slid the fuck out of him and was like, it wasn't your show for the past 30 days. And we've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed barely seeing Jax this season. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm really speaking for the audience. But Jax ends up walking out the door and tells Jesse that he's leaving because he claims that Zach is so petty and catty. But Jason and Sandoval, they're at Jax's house, helping him pack up his shit. And Sandoval ends up asking if he's talked to Brittany, and he says no because he got blocked on everything and hasn't seen his son. I said, that's your fault. That's your fault. Be mad at yourself. He said he's going to write up an email to her, and he says that he's done everything Brittany's asked him to do, and he still feels like he's being punched. And I said, I mean, you stopped paying your mortgage. You've harassed her from the time that you left to the time that you got out. And then not only that, you were supposed to be in there getting help, but you clearly haven't changed, and you've been stalking her every move. What do you think was going to happen? I'd have blocked your ass too. But he then says that he's missing milestones in Cruz's life, and it's not fair. I said, again, whose fault is that? But Jason then tells him that he got a text from Brittany talking about a computer that she doesn't care if Jax takes, but she just needs to sign out of it. Which, I mean, I bet. I would too. But he then says that he already took it, but he'll bring it back. But Jason then tells him, too, that she wants him to log out of the cameras and leave the keys. This is where Jax is like, no, I'm not going to do that until I see Cruz, and I feel like that's fair. Sandoval and Jason pretty much tell him, no, it's not a good look. It's not a good idea. It's going to escalate things. And then you're probably not going to see him even longer. So he then says, she can't take my son away from me because I haven't done anything. Shut the fuck up. That's what I said. Shut up. Because what haven't you done? What haven't you done? But he then says that it bothers him that it doesn't bother Brittany. Please. Sandoval then says it like her heart is broken. Like, what do you mean it doesn't bother her? But he then, Jason then says in his confessionals that he wishes that they would put things aside for Cruz because it's affecting him. Jackson's not stable. He's not stable. Yes, he's the father of his child. But he's not stable. I wouldn't let him around my child either until you show that you're a stable person mentally. But Brittany ends up coming home when he's gone, and she sees that he threw a photo of her and her father away. She takes it out and puts it back in, but she comes back inside to see that the cameras have been uncovered, aka he wants to spy. But Janet comes over with her computer. Brittany starts crying when she goes in the garage and sees that it's empty. It kind of just hits her like, yeah, he's gone for real now. But she then talks about how Jax is making it out that Brittany is some type of villain essentially in the story and trying to keep Cruz away from him when she hasn't even heard from him once since she's unblocked him. So she then tells Janet that she filed, and Janet hugs her and tells her she's proud of her. But she then tells her that to not tell anybody because Kristen's the only one that knows besides her now. And essentially Jax is about to get served papers and she doesn't want him to know until that moment. Smart. But Brittany then shows her Jax pretty much gassing himself up from a burner account on Instagram. Like talking all this stuff to him like affirmations as if he's some fan or whatever. And then she sees all these comments talking shit about her from that same account. And then goes and looks in her DMs where he's sitting there telling her to answer the phone, proving that it's him behind that page. Like, he's so stupid. But Danny and Nia, they're at home talking about the future with their kids. Luke ends up coming over there to recap the night. But essentially, he's over there to pretty much let them know and kind of set the plan for Kristen's proposal in Maui. So basically, he's going to disguise this whole thing as Danny and Nia's trip when honestly, it's actually his trip that he's planning to propose for Kristen. He just wants to disguise it to make it look like it's not something going on. But Luke is hoping for a sunset proposal on a fishing trip and catch her off guard. Last scene, we get Jax and his dumbass at his place with Sandoval now, and they get a ring at the door, and Jax gets served papers. Jax is sitting there talking about, yeah, it's my podcast. No, fool. You don't know. And that just proves, like, it just started how the rest of this episode was going to end. Like, how dumb he is. Just assuming shit. But Jax ends up saying that. But Sandoval was joking about him getting served divorce papers when in actuality, that's what it is. But Jax then realizes, yeah, that is what it is. He thought it was something completely idiot. Didn't read the fucking papers. So Jax is like, what? Do I sign right now? Do I sign right now? Brittany would win. She would win in court because this dumbass is about to sign papers that he did not have a lawyer read over. You fool. But you had the audacity to try and act like Brittany was some unfit mother. You about to just sign over legal documents that you have not had a lawyer read over. Like, you don't know what's in there. You don't know what's in there. You could be signing your life away and not even knowing it, you fool. Like, idiot. But they agree that essentially it's the best case scenario. Neither one of them have really read it. Sandoval seemingly has ran... am I saying Sandoval? It's Schwartz. I just realized I'm talking about Sandoval. Schwartz. Tom Schwartz is there. Neither one of them have read the documents fully, obviously. Like, legal papers, you need to have a lawyer reading this shit to really tell you what's really going on. But they agree that essentially it's the best case scenario. But Schwartz then mentions how the custody might be a little bit, Let's find out what the custody was. Jax is talking about, what does it say? Sandoval says, I mean, you might want to read that. Like, idiot, you didn't read it. But Jax gets in his confessionals talking about he don't know what full legal custody is. I said, this is the person trying to make Brittany out to be some unfit mother. You don't know what full legal custody is. Take them kids, Brittany. Take them and keep them. Keep them. Get the full custody. But Schwartz then sees in the E! News article about Brittany filing, so all the publications are getting on it now. They just posting those articles that she's filing divorce. And he's now trying to victimize himself and whatever, talking about it's hard and it's hard. And that. Shut up. Shut up. It's not. But next week, we get Kristen and Nia versus Janet in Maui. Nia was clocking Janet. Talking about Janet talking about something she was drinking or whatever. And Nia was like, this early in the morning. I said, get her. And then Aaron and Jesse are going head to head. So this is a lot, y'all. I've been talking over myself, fumbling over my words. Y'all going to see a lot of, I'm going to have to edit this one. So it's probably going to come out on Sunday. Thumbs up the video if you haven't already. I just did a whole double recap. And I'm tired as fuck. But thumbs up the video. Drop a comment down below. Subscribe if you're new. You're probably going to see me next Saturday. It probably won't come out on Sunday because it's only going to be one episode that I'm going to recap. And I should be able to get that out on Saturday. But I'll see y'all next time. Thank y'all so much for your patience as well, because I know y'all been waiting on it. But I got it. Let's go.